The silent vanguard. Fleet Commander Ilara Way stood on the observation deck of the ESS Resolute, Earth's flagship vessel, watching the stars with weary eyes. 6 months had passed since the hegemony, a coalition of 7 advanced alien species, had revealed their true intentions toward humanity. The memory of that day still burned in her mind, the day that transformed Earth from an eager new member of the galactic community into a target. "Commander, the War Council is assembled," Lieutenant Commander Cato reported, his face grim beneath the blue glow of the ship's lighting. We nodded, straightening her uniform before following him to the command center. The circular room fell silent as she entered, senior officers from Earth's United Defense Forces rising to attention. The holographic display at the center showed their home planet, surrounded by a network of defensive platforms that seemed pitifully small against the vastness of space. At ease, Wei said, taking her position at the head of the tactical table. "What's our status?" Admiral Hassan, head of Earth's Intelligence Division, stepped forward. "The hegemony fleet has accelerated their approach. At current velocity, they'll reach our outer defense grid in 48 hours. We've confirmed 212 capital ships, supported by approximately 1,500 fighter-class vessels." A murmur ran through the assembled officers. Humanity's combined fleet numbered just 87 ships, most of them hastily retrofitted from civilian vessels after the hegemony's betrayal. "They're coming to finish what they started," Wei said, her voice carrying throughout the room. "Let's remember how we got here." The display shifted to footage from Earth's first contact with the hegemony 3 years earlier. The aliens had presented themselves as benevolent guides, offering to help humanity join the greater galactic civilization. For 2 years, they had shared limited technology, established trade routes, and invited human representatives to their council meetings. "They studied us," Wei continued. "They learned our weaknesses while feeding us carefully measured technology, just enough to make us dependent, never enough to make us equals." The display changed again, showing the hegemony attack on Titan Station 6 months ago. Without warning, their diplomatic vessels had opened fire on humanity's largest off-world colony, killing over 12,000 civilians in minutes. "What we didn't know then was that Earth was never meant to be a partner," Admiral Hassan added. "Geological surveys conducted by their scientific teams were actually resource assessments. Earth's biodiversity, mineral composition, and our sun's particular radiation signature make our system uniquely valuable. The hegemony doesn't want allies. They want our planet." Commander Rivera, head of weapons development, stood next. "Based on intercepted communications, we now know their plan is complete eradication of human resistance, followed by terraforming to optimize Earth for their biological needs. This isn't a war for territory, it's extinction." Wei watched her officers absorb this information. Some had heard it before. Others were learning the full scope of the threat for the first time. She allowed the moment of grim realization to settle before speaking again. "Now for what they don't know," she said, her voice strengthening. "Project Thunderstrike." The holographic display shifted to show schematics of a device, unlike anything in Earth's previously acknowledged arsenal. Rivera took over, pride evident in his voice despite the circumstances. "While the hegemony was studying us, we were studying them. Their ships utilize a quantum field matrix for both propulsion and defensive shields, technology they believe beyond our comprehension. What they fail to understand is that human ingenuity accelerates when faced with extinction." He manipulated the display, expanding the schematics. "Thunderstrike isn't a weapon in the conventional sense. It's a resonance cascade system that destabilizes their quantum fields from within. Their shields become their greatest vulnerability." "Will it work?" asked General Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Corps. "Initial tests against captured hegemony shuttles were successful," Rivera replied. "But we've never deployed it against their capital ships or at this scale." Wei reclaimed the floor. "The hegemony believes they're facing a primitive species with borrowed technology. Their tactical approach will be methodical, arrogant, and predictable. They expect us to flee or surrender. They don't expect us to strike first. She activated the tactical display, showing the position of Earth's defensive fleet. We've hidden our true capabilities. Our ships appear as basic defensive platforms with limited weapon systems. What the hegemony sensors can't detect are the Thunderstrike resonators integrated into each vessel's core. Wei zoomed in on the projected flight path of the incoming alien armada. Their formation indicates they intend to establish a blockade before beginning planetary bombardment. This gives us one opportunity. When their fleet enters this sector, they'll reconfigure their quantum fields to establish communication across their formation. That's when we strike. Admiral Hassan finished. All ships activating Thunderstrike simultaneously, creating a cascading failure across their entire fleet. The room fell silent as the officers considered the plan. It was audacious, perhaps even desperate. If Thunderstrike failed, Earth would have no secondary defense capable of repelling the invasion. Lieutenant Commander Cato was the first to speak. Even if we disable their primary systems, their numbers still overwhelm us. We need a contingency. We nodded, having anticipated the concern. That's where Operation Phantom comes in. The display changed again, showing Earth's moon and the hidden facilities that had been constructed on its dark side over the past 6 months. While the hegemony focused on our visible defenses, we've been building something they never expected: a secondary fleet. The holographic projection revealed hundreds of small fighter craft nestled in lunar caverns, invisible to long-range scans. These interceptors lack the range and firepower of our capital ships, but they're fast, maneuverable, and equipped with modified Thunderstrike devices that can target individual vessels. "Who's piloting them?" asked General Okonkwo. "We don't have enough trained personnel for that many craft." We smiled for the first time since entering the room. Everyone. Retired military, civilian pilots, even gamers who've been training on simulators designed to mimic actual flight controls. For 6 months, while we built these ships, we've been secretly training an auxiliary force of over 10,000 volunteers. Murmurs of surprise and admiration rippled through the assembly. Wei continued, her voice strengthening. The hegemony sees humans as inferior because we lack their unified biological imperative. What they fail to understand is that our diversity is our strength. We don't think as one mind. We innovate, adapt, and overcome in ways they cannot predict. She looked at each officer in turn. In 48 hours, we faced the greatest threat humanity has ever encountered. The hegemony comes with overwhelming force, advanced technology, and thousands of years of military experience, but they come expecting to face the species they've studied and categorized, not the species we become when pushed to the edge of extinction. The War Council proceeded to finalize details of the defensive strategy, assigning fleet positions and synchronizing the Thunderstrike deployment sequence. As officers filed out with their orders, Admiral Hassan remained behind with Commander Wei. "Do you think it will be enough?" he asked quietly when they were alone. We stared at the holographic projection of Earth, slowly rotating amid the darkness of space. "It has to be," she replied. "But there's one more element I haven't shared with the others." She manipulated the controls, bringing up classified schematics for a modification to the Resolute itself. If Thunderstrike fails, the Resolute will initiate Protocol Omega, a direct hyperspace jump into the hegemony flagship. Hassan stared at the calculations. That would create a rupture in the fabric of space-time. "Yes," Wei confirmed, taking their command structure and a significant portion of their fleet with it, giving Earth a chance to rebuild, regroup, and prepare for whatever remains. "A suicide mission," Hassan said, not as a question, but as understanding. We nodded. "One I'll undertake myself, but it won't come to that. I believe in Thunderstrike, in our planning, and most importantly, in what humans are capable of when fighting for their home." As the hegemony fleet approached, cutting through the darkness of space with predatory purpose, humanity prepared for the battle that would determine their existence. Across the planet, Civilians were moved to underground shelters, while the combined Earth fleet took up defensive positions. The lunar facilities hummed with activity as thousands of volunteer pilots prepared their interceptors, each carrying the hope of their species. Aboard the Resolute, Fleet Commander Wei addressed her crew one final time before battle stations. The hegemony believes they know humanity. They've studied our history, our biology, our technology. But what they fail to understand is that humanity has never been defined by what we are, but by what we become when threatened. Today, we show them exactly what that means. Wrath of the Forgotten. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a choreographed display of technological might and military precision. Their massive capital ships, some measuring over 5 kilometers in length, moved with eerie synchronization as they approached Earth's defensive perimeter. Smaller vessels swarmed around them like insects, probing ahead for threats. From the command center of the ESS Resolute, Fleet Commander Ilara Wei watched the enemy's approach on the tactical display. The hegemony ships dwarfed Earth's defensive fleet, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence that shifted colors as they moved. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Lieutenant Commander Kato reported. Standard surrender demand. Let me hear it, Wei ordered. A harsh, multi-tone voice filled the command center, translated by the ship's eye. Attention primitive human forces. Your resistance is futile and illogical. The Council of Seven has determined Earth to be an optimal resource world. Your species has been evaluated and found unsuitable for preservation. Disable your defensive systems and prepare for systematic evacuation to designated processing centers. Resistance will result in immediate termination protocols. Wei silenced the transmission with a gesture. That confirms they still believe we're operating at pre-contact technology levels. Status of Thunderstrike. All ships report ready, Commander, Kato responded. Resonators charged to maximum capacity. And Operation Phantom. Lunar launch base standing by. All pilots report ready. We nodded, her expression resolute. The hegemony expects us to either surrender immediately or attempt a disorganized defense. Let's maintain that illusion. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute scattered formation Delta. Make it look desperate, make it look afraid. Draw them into optimal range. Earth's ships began breaking formation, moving in seemingly panicked patterns that nevertheless drew the hegemony fleet into the precise configuration needed for Thunderstrike. The alien vessels followed, their formation tightening as they pursued what they perceived as easy targets. They're establishing their communication quantum field, reported the sensor officer. Field synchronization at 63% and rising. Wei watched the numbers climb. Thunderstrike would be most effective once the hegemony ships fully connected their quantum fields, but waiting too long risked allowing them to fire their main weapons. 78%, the officer continued. 82, 87. Prepare Thunderstrike, Wei ordered. All ships, final positions. The Earth fleet's erratic movements suddenly resolved into a precise pattern, each vessel now positioned at calculated nodes around the hegemony formation. The alien ships hesitated, their perfect formation faltering momentarily as their commanders registered the unexpected maneuver. They're detecting something, Kato warned. Hegemony lead vessels are powering weapons systems. Field synchronization at 94%. The sensor officer called out. Wei's hand hovered over the command console. Almost there. Energy spike. They're firing. Now. Wei slammed her palm down on the activation key. Execute Thunderstrike. Across the Earth fleet, the hidden resonators activated simultaneously. There was no visible beam, no dramatic explosion, only a subtle ripple that propagated through space like a stone dropped in water. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the hegemony ships began to shudder. Their quantum fields, the very technology that powered their vessels and maintained their shields, started collapsing in cascading waves. Ship after ship lost power, their lights flickering and dying as their systems overloaded. It's working, Cato breathed, watching the tactical display as red icons representing enemy vessels began flashing with warning symbols. But the hegemony commanders adapted quickly. The lead vessels, already partially recovered from the initial shock, began reconfiguring their quantum fields, isolating themselves from the cascade effect. They're adapting faster than predicted, we noted grimly. Signal Operation Phantom. Launch now. From the dark side of the moon, thousands of small fighter craft suddenly emerged, their engines burning bright as they accelerated toward the disabled hegemony fleet. Unlike traditional military formations, these pilots flew in unpredictable patterns, approaching from multiple vectors simultaneously. The hegemony's secondary defensive systems began targeting the incoming fighters, but they had been designed to counter conventional military tactics. These pilots, civilians, gamers, retired veterans, didn't fly with military precision. Their approaches were creative, intuitive, and utterly unpredictable. "Look at that," Admiral Hassan said, pointing to a cluster of fighters executing a maneuver that resembled a technique from a popular space combat game. "They're using tactics from Stellar Command, a video game." We nodded, a small smile forming. The hegemony analyzes military history to predict our strategies. They never studied our entertainment. As the fighters closed in, they deployed their modified Thunderstrike devices, targeting individual hegemony vessels that were attempting to reestablish their quantum fields. One by one, the alien ships went dark, drifting helplessly in space. Not all the human fighters made it through. Hundreds were destroyed by defensive fire or suicide drones launched from the larger hegemony vessels. But for each human fighter lost, dozens more pressed the attack, driven by the knowledge that Earth's survival hung in the balance. Aboard the hegemony command ship, Supreme Commander Zorax Vaughn watched in disbelief as his fleet disintegrated around him. "Impossible," he hissed through multiple breathing apertures. These creatures were primitive, unworthy. How could they? His senior tactician, a tall, spindly being with compound eyes, interrupted. "Supreme Commander, we're detecting an energy buildup in the human flagship. Pattern unknown, but power levels exceeding anything in our database." On the Resolute, Y had activated the ship's secondary system, a modified version of the hegemony's own quantum technology, reverse-engineered and enhanced by Earth's scientists. "Quantum lance charged to maximum," reported the weapons officer. "Target locked on hegemony command vessel." We hesitated only a moment, thinking of the thousands of lives already lost in this conflict. Fire. The Resolute shuddered as a beam of concentrated quantum energy erupted from its bow, cutting through space like a surgeon's scalpel. It struck the hegemony command ship with pinpoint precision, bypassing its partially restored shields and piercing its central core. For a moment, the massive alien vessel seemed unaffected. Then, slowly, it began to split apart, energy cascading from the wound created by the quantum lance. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface as internal systems failed catastrophically. "Hegemony command ship destroyed," Cato announced, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "Enemy fleet in disarray." They're retreating, Commander." Throughout the battlefield, the remaining operational hegemony vessels were breaking formation, some fleeing at maximum speed while others drifted powerless. The lunar fighters pursued, disabling engines and weapons systems, but leaving life support intact. Wei opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All vessels, this is Fleet Commander Wei. Cease fire on disabled enemies, secure prisoners, and prepare rescue operations where needed. This day we fought not just for victory, but for justice. We will not descend to their level of cruelty." In the hours that followed, humanity's combined forces secured their improbable victory. Of the original 212 hegemony capital ships, 157 had been disabled or destroyed. The remainder had retreated, jumping to hyperspace with a message that would soon reach the core worlds of the hegemony. The humans were not to be underestimated. 1 week later, Fleet Commander Wei stood before the United Earth Council, delivering her final report on what was already being called the Battle of Terran Liberation. The chamber was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered to hear her words. "The hegemony came to eradicate us," Wei said, her voice carrying throughout the hall. "They came with overwhelming force, advanced technology, and the certainty of their own superiority. What they failed to understand was the fundamental nature of humanity." She gestured to the display behind her, showing footage from the battle. "Our strength has never been in our uniformity, but in our diversity. Not in our obedience, but in our creativity. Not in our technology alone, but in how we use it." The display shifted to show the captured hegemony vessels now being studied by Earth's scientists. "From the prisoners we've learned that the hegemony has dominated this sector of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. They've absorbed or eliminated dozens of species, always following the same pattern: evaluation, infiltration, resource assessment, then eradication." Wei paused, looking across the assembled leaders. "But they've never encountered a species like ours before. One that questions, adapts, and refuses to accept limitations imposed by others. One that, when pushed to the edge of extinction, pushes back." The council chamber erupted in applause. When it subsided, Wei continued, her expression solemn despite the victory. "This battle is won, but the war is not over. The hegemony will return, and they will not underestimate us again. We must prepare, not just with weapons and shields, but with alliances." She revealed the final piece of intelligence gleaned from the captured ships. "The hegemony is not beloved by all species in this galaxy. There are others who have suffered under their rule, others who have been waiting for a chance to break free. We are not alone in our resistance." As the council session concluded, Wei met privately with Admiral Hassan in the observatory overlooking Earth's orbit, where the combined fleet now patrolled alongside their captured prizes. "What do you think they'll do next?" Hassan asked, watching as a former hegemony cruiser, now bearing Earth insignia, passed beneath them. Wei studied the stars, thinking of the vastness of space and the civilizations that awaited beyond. "They'll come back eventually, but not soon. First, they'll try to understand what happened here, how a primitive species defeated their most advanced fleet." She turned to face her old friend. "And while they're trying to understand us, we'll be out there." She gestured toward the distant stars, "finding allies, learning, growing." The hegemony believed they were the pinnacle of evolution, the rightful rulers of the galaxy. "We just proved them wrong." Hassan nodded slowly. "From prey to predator in a single battle. The galaxy won't be the same." "No," Wei agreed, "but we won't become like them. Earth has always been home to thousands of cultures, philosophies, and beliefs. We know how to create unity from diversity. That's what the galaxy needs, not another empire, but a coalition. Not subjugation, but cooperation." As night fell over Earth, its people celebrated their survival while looking to the stars with new eyes. No longer were they alone in the universe, no longer naive about the dangers that lurked in the darkness of space, but neither were they afraid. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged victorious, proving that adaptability, creativity, and determination could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. And somewhere out there, among the countless stars, other species watched and wondered about the newcomers who had done the impossible, who had broken the hegemony's grip and opened the door to a new future for the galaxy.